Hey everyone, it's Wolfgang. This video is about a business emergency, how to survive and thrive. If something comes up that disrupts your business, stay tuned. I'll explain how we handle it, a successful way to navigate through an emergency. So generally, if an emergency happens in your company, you may have to drop everything to tackle it. You may have to just drop everything if it's a serious issue. Emergencies come in all different intensities, I guess. But if you have a big issue that is a make or break issue, you tend to need to drop everything so you can focus on solving it and getting through it. So it's very disruptive. If it's that type of emergency, it can affect almost everything in your life. If you're always thinking about it when you go home after work, that's the sort of thing that I'm talking about. If it's a make or break issue with the business, it's hard to get it off your mind. I mean, if you're an employee, it's different. But if you're one of the operators, the owners, it can be very disruptive. So why do business emergencies come up? Well, there's a lot of different reasons. Here are some. Changes in the law that affect your business, the economy faltering, a vendor might have leverage over you. That's actually happened to us. A vendor who had leverage over our company, a vendor who, a supplier, somebody who supplies materials or services to your company, and they have leverage over you. Co-founder issue, that's happened. That's happened to me with the co-founder. Your cash flow goes negative, accounts receivable spike, a cash flow problem, money coming into the business goes negative. That's a huge issue. You've got to solve those sorts of things right away. So does this sort of thing, an emergency that comes along in a business that forces you to drop everything, if you're just an employee, is it as big of a deal? It can be. If you're in a startup, which I've been in several startups, as an example, if a new funding round does not materialize, sometimes the startup is going to have to go to instant survival mode, lay off a certain percentage of staff. Everybody's work assignment shifts to survival activities. So employees in the startup tend to have a drop everything moment. And when they go home at night, they're thinking about it because startup life is pretty risky. And even in more established companies, if a company gets taken over by another business, or if the economy tanks and layoffs are announced, that can still be an emergency that's makes you drop everything and really focus on that. If you're an employee, you start shopping around your resume to find a next position, another job. So we're talking about a business emergency that is so acute that you have to drop everything and shift your focus to solving it and getting through it. So here's how we handle it. The first thing we do is we identify all non-essential activity and we stop it. We just stop it. And sometimes that can be painful. It's a real PITA to have to drop everything if you had a personal interest in it. But if it's not essential to surviving the emergency, you have to let it go, at least temporarily. Next step, we brainstorm all possible paths away from the emergency situation that we're currently in. We're here at ground zero. We have a big deal we've got to solve. We brainstorm what are the possible paths away from this spot, the possible outcomes for us. And then we can actually try to rank by probability what the most likely outcomes are going to be. And what this does is it gives you some comfort so that you've surveyed all the possible outcomes for the emergency. So you're no longer sitting awake at night wondering what's going to happen. You've already gone through a brainstorming process. You've mapped out every possible condition. And a lot of times you can use history of other companies and how they tackled the emergency to know what the possible outcomes are. So this step is essential. It sort of removes the clouds away from the possibilities. You will know what the possible outcomes are. The next thing we do is we reach out to our network and we ask if anyone has solved this type of problem, this emergency, and then we talk to them. Especially if these people, if you have an industry network, people in the industry, which is very common, you just start reaching out to your network. You tell them what's going on. For example, if you have a vendor that's exerting leverage over your company, you reach out to your industry friends and talk to them. What have other people done to solve this? This vendor is raking us over the coals, for example. So if it is a vendor emergency, immediately contact alternative vendors. And even if, this includes vendors who you got pissed off at and you stop working with them because their customer service sucks or they're not that great. If they're a source for what you need, you've got to leave yourself open to working with them again, at least temporarily. Alternative vendors can include vendors you would never have considered working with in the past because they charge twice or three times what your preferred vendor charges. If you have a vendor emergency, and it's not that uncommon, you should immediately reach out to alternative vendors who can get you through the emergency. Because if your business is at risk, you should become willing to do almost anything to make it through. Okay. So that's just like the introductory steps. Drop all non-essential activities, brainstorm the possible paths away from ground zero, reach out to your network to see if anyone else has solved this type of problem and talk to them. And if it's a vendor emergency, start looking for other alternative vendors. Okay, but then the next step is to create a first pass game plan. And the reason I say first pass here is the first time you make your game plan on what you're going to do next, you won't remember everything that comes. You will start thinking about the implications of the emergency on all parts of your business, and that will evolve over the next few days, over the hours and days. So every time you think about something new that you initially forgot, then you end up with a second pass game plan. You have to update the first pass game plan. But generally, the game plan is going to have this structure. You make a list of all actions that you need to take. Remember, we dropped everything. All non-essential activity is gone temporarily. So we're going to make a list of all the actions that we must take to survive and get through the emergency, and then assign priorities. We're trying to get organized with how to move forward with the emergency. Assign top priority for all must-do now actions. And that could be, we've got to do that today. Like our bank just folded, and our money is tied up in that bank until the regulators release our funds, and we need money like now. So that's something you have to do today. You have to reach, a line of credit, open a line of credit with another bank. As an example, you can use your inventory as collateral or some other forms of collateral, a second mortgage or a HELOC, or a lien on property. So those are the sorts of things you might need to get done immediately today. So you assign top priority for all must-do now actions. So this is the first pass game plan. The next thing is assign this week tasks, actions that must be done this week in the next 5 business days. So they're not as urgent as the top priority, but they have to be done in the next 5 days. This could include things like the insurance company dropped us. We have to find new insurance. You might feel nervous about being uninsured, but if you can get insurance over the next 5 days, in all likelihood, you will not have something that will lead to a claim on your insurance policy. But you should find a new insurance carrier, a new insurance provider this week. You shouldn't put that off. So that would be 5 business days. And then the next priority could be all actions you should take in the first 2 weeks, the first 10 business days. So you're getting really organized with this game plan of actions. Must do now, top priority, must do today, must be done the next 5 business days, must be done in the next 10 business days, and so on. Must be done over the first month. So we've dropped everything. We've got a first pass game plan. And then let me refer to my notes here because I ran out of space. Okay, so here are some emergency moves you might have to take. And this is going to be company dependent. This may not be your company, but these are things that come up, okay? Here's one example. Place a backup order for raw materials. Place a backup order for raw materials. If you have money issues and you have customers waiting for you to fulfill their orders and you need the raw materials so that you can collect money from that customer, you're going to have to find a backup for the raw materials. If your vendor goes under or something happens to them and you still need those raw materials because you have customers waiting for products and then you can collect money from those customers, then place a backup order for those raw materials, even if the cost is higher. You need the money to be able to collect from your customers. Here's another example. If you had like one large customer and they went bankrupt and they were not going to pay you, and that represented a sizable portion of cash that you needed in the business, that's an emergency. That's a drop everything, drop all non-essential activity problem. Now, in my opinion, you should never have a customer that can do that to you. You should never have a lopsided customer base where one customer has that big a percentage of your business. That's a mistake, because if they go bankrupt, they're not going to pay you, right? And it takes months to go through the bankruptcy procedure. But if that does happen, then here's what you're going to have to do. So if you get a non-payment from a big customer, and there's no chance you're going to get paid in a timely fashion, if at all, then rank your employees. This is a little bit, but this is a make or break for the business. You're going to have to probably let some people go. Rank your employees, number one, in terms of who can do more than one task in the company. Those employees are valuable. Also, identify which employees out of those who have the best attitude and are most aligned with the company's business goals. And then finally, unfortunately, identify the first employees you're going to need to let go. If you have a customer who's not going to pay you, and that was a big part of your ability to make payroll, you're going to have to let some people go. So, but the key mentality, the key mindset here is live to fight another day. Yes, you're going to have to let you're going to have to let some employees go, perhaps, and shrink the company down, but that could only be temporary. That might just be temporary, and you will live to fight another day. If you have a bloated payroll and you, for emotional reasons or sentimental reasons, hold on to favored employees, you can sink the company. You have to think in terms of live to fight another day. Okay, so what happens to your mood and stuff when you're going through this kind of drop everything emergency? So the first thing you should do is give yourself permission. It's 100% okay to have sort of a somber, serious kind of mood where your sense of humor is kind of put aside temporarily, right? Because if you have to drop everything to make your company survive, it's a time to be serious, right? You can be in a somber mood, and you should not look at yourself and say, well, I'm not handling this very well. No, you're handling it the way everyone handles drop everything emergencies. You get very serious, very focused, and you don't worry about being chipper all the time and happy because it's not the time. There's a time and a place for everything, right? And so survivors, people in companies who survive this, they assault the problem. They use some kind of process like this. They drop everything, all non-essentials. They create a first pass game plan. They assign priorities. They get organized, and they attack the problem. They don't just let's just sit around and pretend nothing's happened and see what the outcome is. You have to assault the problem. You have to have a structured plan on how to handle the emergency so that you can survive. One thing I like to do when this comes up, because this comes up for us, right? So there's a really good tea that I drink. It's called Tension Tamer Tea by Celestial Seasonings. I'm not a spokesperson for them. It's just a product that I use. No caffeine. It's got B vitamins. It's got herbs, and it gives a really good sense of well-being after you drink a cup of it. It's called Tension Tamer Tea. It's a blue box. It's a Celestial Seasonings product. It can really come in handy in lieu of coffee when you're stressed out over an emergency. And then finally, after you go through a process like this, when you've had to abandon all normal actions to get through an emergency, you are now match tough in terms of your business experience. People who are in business where everything is rosy all the time, they never have issues, they lack confidence that you will have. After you have a structured process like this and you work through it and you get through it and you come out the other end, you will be able to say with confidence, if an emergency arises, I've got a way to get through it. It may not be pleasant, but I do have a method, a structured way to work through the emergency, including having to lay off staff sometimes. So being match tough with business emergencies is a good feather in your cap in terms of business experience, because some company founders they don't have these kind of stresses. So having the confidence that you can get through really tough times is valuable. Okay, so I hope this helps, because we're kind of going through a situation ourselves right now, and I just thought I'm going to describe. This is a portion of our process about what we've been doing lately. Dropping everything and being kind of freaked out. It's okay to be a little freaked out, but the confidence that comes from having a structure and having a first pass game plan, it's really comforting. And it's really comforting to have brainstormed all the possible outcomes and know what the paths out of ground zero are. Because at least you know what you're dealing with, and it's not, because there's this idea, fear of the unknown, right? That can cause issues. So if you brainstormed all possible paths from ground zero, the fear of the unknown kind of goes away, because you've already contemplated what the what the likely outcome is going to be. So anyways, if you have any questions about this, you can post questions in the comments. I'll try to answer them. And I really want to thank everyone for watching, and have a great day.